Chapter 6. If I take 3 pills at once, the effect should be huge. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to use it properly, but a dragon's might could. I have to do this. For Leah. Thinking of Leah's healing, Zephyr didn't hesitate. He swallowed the 3 pills and felt their effects. It filled his intestines with intense energy. Zephyr focused his mind, his breath, his soul. He felt the energy as it accumulated and merged with each other, uniting into a blazing fire. Like a dragon's fire, it engulfed his body and turned into scorching energy. Zephyr felt a sudden surge of physical energy, and it heated his skin. Gah! Zephyr moaned in pain. He felt like he was being split in half. Countless drops of ink came out of his skin, the poison from the spirit pills, and other poisons inside his body. He felt his body being hit by the blow. Zephyr couldn't help but fall to his knees. The pain was intense. He felt like every organ in his body was being crushed at once, even his soul seemed to be shaking. The dragon's power. Zephyr called out, his soul unwavering. He bit his lip, endured the pain, and howled again, all to maintain his power. A humming sound surrounded him before he burst into a terrifying howl from within, a dragon's roar, silencing all his trauma. Zephyr's gaze grew even more intense, as if there was a dragon behind his gaze. Now! Zephyr shouted, pretending, and commanding the medicinal properties of the spirit pills, allowing his might to absorb their essences. He felt his power rise, and enter new heights. All he needed was one final push. Zephyr let out a terrifying howl as he focused his heart and soul on the path, transcending to the limits of his spirit. For a moment, Zephyr felt for a moment like an ancient beast, a dragon, floating in the lands below, limitless, without equal. Zephyr felt something shift within him, like a sixth sense conjured from nothingness. He knew what he must do, what he could do. Now. Zephyr thought, immediately focusing on absorbing the energies, the real energy. Real energy swirled around him and entered him, spreading throughout his body. The feeling of limitless energy sharpened his mind and spirit, strengthened his body, and illuminated his soul. Zephyr couldn't help but feel the strong beating of his heart, which had no intention of slowing down. He felt as if he had been taken over by a trance that lasted an entire day. The next morning, sunlight shone through the many holes in his roof, bathing Zephyr in its rays. As the light hit his body, only then did he move slightly. What? Only 5 silver coins. Madam, are you mistaken? I worked my hours accordingly, it should be 10 pieces. How could it be this little? Leah asked with a puzzled look. She stared questioningly at the large woman in front of her. Her voice was gentle. She looked at her fellow slaves beside her, with expressions that asked for their help. Unfortunately, the other women were only looking at her with a sneer. Hey, do you think you're worth 10 silver coins? You're lucky you only got half. Be glad I'm a compassionate woman, now take your money and go. Madam Li exclaimed in a mocking tone. You vagabond, Madam Li gave you so much. How much more do you want? Have you ever thought about what you were like before? Don't say that, she is the young master's personal servant after all, of course she'd be entitled. Ha. Too bad his boss is a bastard prince. Ha ha ha. The other servants laughed as they mocked her and Zephyr. How dare you? Shut up. Zephyr is not a bastard. Leah shouted through clenched teeth. Her face was red from the humiliation she and Zephyr had endured. That's enough. Madam Lee ordered. She turned her gaze to Leah. Do you really need us to prove to you that he's a bastard? Just take your money and go. She said with a wicked smile. Honestly, I can't stand looking at you. You're right, I gave you half your salary on purpose. What are you going to do about that? Bite me. Madam Lee sneered. Chapter 7. How? How could you? I work day and night just to earn some coins. Leah couldn't help but beg with tears, her face wet with injustice. Oh, shut up. What are you crying about? Madam Lee said with a frown. With a sad yet irritated look in her eyes, she raised her heavy hand and delivered a slap to Leah's small face. Zephyr continued to channel his energy into his hut. He guided the flow of true energy throughout his body. Suddenly everything stopped, and a burst of true energy exploded inside him a few seconds later. Zephyr let out a heavy sigh and opened his eyes, witnessing the waves dancing around him then slowly disappearing. Yes. Level 6. He thought to himself. Zephyr slowly raised his arms and felt the magnitude of the power he felt. He was certain that he was at least 5 times the man he had been before. The way sure is strong. It hasn't even been a month since I started and I've already raised my level twice. The poisons inside me have been destroyed, Zephyr was happy to think. He calmed himself down as soon as possible. A strength of the 6th level didn't mean much, but it was still a force to be reckoned with. Zephyr thought about how strong he was with the draconic augmentation. Please, stop. A shout rang out from outside. Isn't it? Leah. Zephyr quickly walked out of his shack with a face full of anger with no doubt in his eyes. As he walked out, he saw Madam Lee raise her large right hand, swinging it with the intention of striking Leah. Hey! Zephyr shouted angrily, a raging storm forming inside her, ready to be unleashed at a moment's notice. If you lay a finger on her, you're dead. Noticing the power behind Madam Lee's palm, she knew immediately that if it aimed to connect with Leah's face, her teeth would be missing. Zephyr was furious. Get out of here! Zephyr shouted. With a huff, Zephyr's pure bloodlust stopped Madam Lee in her tracks, her energy freezing her in place. Madam Lee immediately changed her tone and showed intense fear. She quickly reached out a palm, hoping to defend herself. Unfortunately, Zephyr was too strong. Her energy, which was like a polearm, pierced through her defenses, shattered her right hand, and continued towards her chest. Madam Lee screamed and was sent flying 30 feet away, fresh blood spurting from her mouth as she landed. His body was damaged by his attack. Every bone was shattered. Zephyr. Madam Lee gasped between spits of blood, her eyes widening at the young man in front of her, unable to comprehend what she had attacked as capable of doing such damage. Master! Leah screamed, tears of joy welling up. She had never dreamed that Zephyr would be so powerful. The surrounding maids stared at her in awe, shocked to the core. How is this possible? You're just a bastard, how could you be so powerful? Madam Lee gasped, her face turning white, unable to understand how someone as weak as Zephyr could be so powerful. HMPH. she gasped, pushing past the onlookers and reaching Madame Li's feet. She glared coldly at this wicked and fat woman. How dare you, you B*TCH. How dare you touch her? She shouted maliciously. Don't you dare touch me, Zephyr. I'm warning you. My cousin is a Khan official, if anything happens to me, you're dead. Madame Li glowered upon learning how lowly Zephyr was in the Khan clan. Am I dead? Zephyr said secretly. Yes, I ah. Madame Li's answer was correct. Zephyr stomped on her left hand, causing her to groan in pain. You're just a servant, how dare you be so rude? Then she kicked him in the gut. How dare you hurt Leah? Another kick. You're about to die, but you still dare to scare me. Another kick. Zephyr stomped on Madame Li non-stop without a care in the world, feeling no remorse for her actions. Madame Li could do nothing but cough up more blood after each step Zephyr took. She couldn't scream. The servants sighed as they witnessed the cruel scene before them. They couldn't help but wonder, is this still the bastard prince? Zephyr, stop this. An angry voice rang out. A middle-aged man dressed in bronze cautiously approached. Chapter 8. The man gave her a stern look, however, behind those eyes there was a chaotic nature. His body posture also gave off an air of elegant power, vibrating with true energy. He was at a strength of the 5th level. Zephyr's might helped him see the interloper himself and immediately recognized his level. Help me. Kill this B*****. Madame Li shouted. Seeing her cousin appear, Madame Li couldn't help but be happy. Even though her face was covered in fresh blood, her cunning and venomous eyes only said one thing, kill. Just kill this B*****. Seeing her cousin lying there broken, Louis flew into a rage. However, his demeanor quickly changed when he caught sight of the culprit. Zephyr stood in front of him, confident and sure of himself, as if he had given his utmost ability. Louis, unsettled by this new development, demanded, how is this possible? How is this B**** higher in level than myself? Before Louis could continue, his body began to tremble. He wasn't scared, but he was close, because Zephyr's energy was holding him back. If Louis made a move, Zephyr wouldn't hesitate to attack. How is he so strong? Was he acting all this time? Louis whispered. He could tell Zephyr was stronger. A violent shockwave erupted, and Louis was truly terrified. Louis felt like he was staring at a large dragon, one that was roaring directly at his face. It was no surprise for Louis to realize his will to fight had faded. He felt the air around him slow down, making it difficult for him to breathe. Louis fell to his knees, unable to withstand Zephyr's power. I'm sorry for my impudence, I'm here to greet the young master. Louis screamed. He was shaking, he had never been so scared in his entire life. Louis couldn't handle Zephyr's advances, he knew that Zephyr could easily wipe him off the face of the earth if he wanted to. He knew that he could only be pitied. Seeing Louis kneel down while begging Zephyr for mercy, once again, the onlookers were shocked to their core, they were helpless as they stared at him in disbelief. You pig! Madame Li exclaimed, not believing what was happening. Louis felt resentment building inside him. Madame Li was no more than a distant relative, but she often hung her name on his head as a reason for recognition. Never, he had thought that he would be this stupid. Louis. Zephyr shouted. Yes, master. The Khan's official replied. He couldn't help but feel a thrill at being called by his name. Zephyr pressed Louis even harder. Tell me, who is the rightful heir of the Khan? Zephyr said with playful delight, a silly smile dancing on his face. Why you, of course. Louis replied immediately. He knew what Zephyr was thinking, and instinctively swiped Madame Li with a hateful grin. You're right. You're smart. Zephyr snorted, his smile sly but scary. Leah, let us leave, he called and motioned for her to follow. Leah just blinked and followed him. Louis, are you daft? Why did you let that B***** leave? She attacked me, you should have killed her. Madame Li spat. In her anger, she couldn't help but stain the ground with bloody words. However, this didn't stop the incessant screams that were thrown at Louis. Louis didn't respond, instead he just glanced at the screaming bimbo. He thought about how it almost cost him his life. With a quick hand, Louis reached out and snapped Madame Li's neck. The servants screamed in unison. Madame Li could do nothing but stare at Louis in disbelief as he lay down. Please, shut up, she cursed. She couldn't shake the emotion Zephyr was giving off. She was both horrified and shocked, mostly horrified. Everyone thought Zephyr was a worthless B****. However, unbeknownst to everyone, he was hiding a wolf in sheep's clothing. He is no less than a level 6 strength. Somehow, he achieved this without the help of the clan. How is this possible? Louis thought in silence. After a while, he breathed a sigh of relief, and turned his gaze to the servants. Chapter 9. Whatever happened here today stays between us. If I so much as get a whiff that word got out, she will be your fate. The servants hurriedly nodded in agreement, all clearly trembling inside. Whoa, master, when did you become so strong? Even Louis was afraid of you, Leah said, praising Zephyr with eyes full of wonder. Hey dummy, I told you not to work anymore. I said I had an idea how to make a bank. Zephyr replied, patting her head lovingly. Yes, yes, I know, Leah purred, her eyes closed, and enjoying his caress whimsically. Louis is smart, he won't reveal my secret, Zephyr explained. According to Lincoln's dosage, in another 2 months, the total amount of poison in the pill would be enough to kill me. If I was still okay then, he would definitely be suspicious. Zephyr silently mused. As he thought about that, he felt even more urgent and clenched his fist. Lincoln was not a weak person, he was a 9th level strength, and the strongest in the entire Khan clan. I need to get myself to 8 strength within these 2 months. In Zephyr's mind, Zephyr's plan continued with his next move, knowing that he didn't have much time left, everything he planned had to be nonsense. Leah felt even more relieved, and whistled back to the shack. However, when they arrived, she immediately went to wash Zephyr's clothes. Zephyr sat on his bed, silently reciting the way, once again, preparing for training. Zephyr felt his body repair and strengthen every time he practiced. The true energy given by the path was like a dragon, continuously swimming throughout his body, increasing his strength. After a while, Zephyr breathed a sigh of relief, signaling that his training was over. He noticed that the energy he released was like the shape of a dragon, dancing around. 2 knocks on the door rang out. Maestro, are you there? It's me, Louis. Come in. Zephyr replied sweetly. He was feeling contemptuous towards Louis, annoyed that he even dared to show his face. Louis entered, his complexion difficult to read, however, he stared at Zephyr carefully. What is this? Zephyr asked, simultaneously giving it to Louis. Louis clenched his jaw for a moment, and immediately knelt down, and respectfully replied, Master, please forgive me for not recognizing your strength. Please forgive me for all the discrimination, insults, and inconvenience I have caused you. Please, punish me if you wish. Zephyr remembered that the training resources for Khan were arranged by Louis. He remembered how the resources allocated to him were not even a tenth of what others had obtained. What he suspected was true, Louis had been tampering with his allocated resources all along. HMPH. You're right, Louis, I should punish you, seriously. But, seeing how you came to your senses in time, and rightly repented, as well as my current instability in society, perhaps we can come to an agreement. A choice for you to redeem yourself. What do you say? Zephyr frowned. Please, accept my humble thanks, my lord. From now on, I, Louis, will be completely loyal to you with all my heart. Louis pleaded. Zephyr nodded bitterly. He was wary of Louis' motives. He understood that Louis was a fair friend at times, for now, he could be loyal, but when the going got tough, Louis would leave. However, he knew this worm wouldn't try now, at least not yet. Great, you are a smart one. From now on, report to me whenever something big goes on, especially when it regards Lincoln. As long as you do your job, I will not treat you unfairly, claimed Zephyr. Understood, my lord. Louis replied seriously. Then he stood up and bowed. Following that, he made a silver bond and gave it to Zephyr. Master, please accept this gift from your humble servant, Louis suggested. Zephyr knew that one of these was worth at least 10,000 silver coins. Louis agreed, he would see that. That's beautiful. Zephyr quickly pocketed the silver bond. He needed various medicines for his training, especially now to speed things up. He wouldn't miss such an opportunity. If possible, my lord, I'll leave now. Louis bowed before leaving. This money sure is convenient. Zephyr exclaimed, smiling slyly at the silver bond. Chapter 10. In the days since then, thanks to Louis, Zephyr's life has become much more peaceful, at least for Leah, because he no longer has to work so hard. During the day, Zephyr has kept a low profile, often quietly practicing at home. When night falls, he will retreat to the back hills and train vigorously. However, his power is still not enough. He needs to take extra precautions. If Lincoln discovers his secret, things will be complicated. Zephyr has no difficulty defending himself, however, he cannot put Leah in danger. It was already night. Zephyr was practicing on the hill. Zephyr grinned seriously, the air around him filled with true energy, ready to explode at any moment. In front of him lay a large cauldron, the vessel underneath boiling it. Inside the pot was an emerald sludge, it bubbled nonstop as its fragrance released a herby aroma. With Louis' help, Zephyr secretly purchased tons of herbs and medicine. He thought his order was finished. Zephyr had even reached the skills for high-quality pill making. He needed more strength to do this, otherwise he wouldn't be able to sustain the pill-making process with his true energy reserves. Zephyr said that making balance pills was the best pills he could make right now. Balance pills would only come into being 7 years later, and these pills were 10 times as effective as spirit pills. Zephyr was probably the only one capable of making them. Zephyr began to stir the cauldron and the contents inside began to swirl, using Zephyr's energy as a guide. Some spilled out during the process, but were eventually removed. Finally, the contents of the pot made a strange sound and the pot shattered on its own, then it left a few pills to be laid out on the fire. DMN, the quality of these pills is terrible, I'm afraid I might have to buy a pill oven. Zephyr examined the pills he had taken, a slight disappointment on his face. Judging the pill, Zephyr decided that it was a bad product, however, it was still better than the current spirit pills. Up there. Thinking of the time, Zephyr immediately swallowed a balance pill and tasted it with a bitter, herby sensation that went down his throat. No reaction. He thought. He felt nothing. I didn't fail, did I? OSH*T. Before he could finish his sentence, a sudden burst of energy erupted from his gut. Like a volcano spewing anger, the medicinal properties of the pill flooded Zephyr's entire body, circulating his energies. The power was so strong, Zephyr couldn't help but let out a terrifying howl. He felt the effects reaching his body and rejuvenating him beyond his limits. Ancient draconic might, strengthen me. Zephyr immediately got down and crossed his legs, quickly reciting the dawn, forcing his body to absorb and utilize the effects of the pill. Zephyr knew that he had to complete this process quickly, putting his heart and soul into it. He heard his muscles, energy channels, and veins emitting strange sounds. His clothes were torn as true energy poured into him. Balance pills are always better than spirit pills. Zephyr thought under the effects of the dawn, Zephyr quickly recovered, satisfied with the effectiveness of his product. Zephyr knew that if he had a pill oven to refine the balance pills, he would have surpassed his current state. Zephyr let out a roar similar to that of a dragon, calming his spirit. He needed to control his true energy flow. Soon, Zephyr realized that somewhere in his body, a strange energy had formed. What is this?